Hey, welcome everybody. I'm excited for this session. We got Jess Cervellon coming down, working with us today. We're going to be talking about the retention playbook, how to build customer brand, where customers are excited about what you do and why you do it. Before we jump into that topic, though, my friend and old colleague and friend, Jess, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing over there at Open Lake Collective.
Hey, we're besties. We're besties. First
No,
of
there's a
all,
few people I do like in this space, and Jess, a few, only a few. And
only a few.
I love
Only
it.
a few. I mean, I agree. Only a few. But CX is like the mafia. So, you gotta be nice to everybody.
That's true. That's true. Mm.
So, yeah, I am the founder, CEO, head fractional CX and retention leader at Open Lake Collective, where we help brands fractionally with their CX or retention strategies.
Yeah,
And we do some light brand strategy as well. We
yeah,
just help brands grow. That's the best
love
way
it.
to put
I love it. One of the things I love Jess is doing is finding that balance between, this marketing and CX world where there's so much kind of going on between, how you grow and retain that I think she's got a fun niche right in the middle there. So some fun stuff coming down. If you haven't checked out Open Lake, do that. But today, Jess, wanted to see if I could steal all the goodness you have in kind of a rapid fire session about that world you've been playing in. So let me dive in with kind of big picture stuff. You found, I think, a good niche around growth and support, where you kind of help brands find that magic or around that. What is there? How did you get into that? Or what was the impetus of the kind of, man, CX can be a growth engine, not just that cost engine.
Yeah, I mean, well, if we think about it, like, and not even just, current economic status, right? You just
Ooh,
think about if you think about all of e-commerce in general, right? Like the general history of e-commerce, we spend so much money trying to grow, acquire the customer, do everything that you can with like ads and this, that, and the other thing, right? Get them all into the list, but then you don't spend the time nurturing them. And a lot of times people thought retention was just email and SMS. But what if you take out thinking that it's just email and SMS and you think about your entire customer's life cycle, right? And the entire journey of your customer. You spend so much time getting them to buy, but then what happens at post purchase? And a part of that is CX. And it's
yeah,
not thinking about like CX as like a support function. It's
yeah,
thinking about your customer experience throughout your customer's journey so that you're constantly retaining them at growth. And
yeah,
I mean, there's plenty of tactics that you can apply to your CX team where you're not just looking at CSAT or first response times, you're actually looking at how your customer experience department has a play into your repeat purchase rates, into churn,
gotcha.
figuring out like not the feedback of why your customers churn and then applying that feedback into the rest of the company.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I do think it's so hard to get people into the funnel. And once you do, sometimes we forget that and we don't focus on kind of that growth as much. But I think finding that balance is super important. I'm just rapid firing here. And if you didn't see, we have these cool hats on. I forgot the hats. We got the Open Lake Collective. Jess sent me a whole package of stuff. I should actually be wearing all the garb. I'm just wearing the hat. I'm still wearing
Soon,
my customer.
soon we're gonna have chains. It's gonna be
Yeah.
real cool around here,
Oh
okay?
geez. Oh geez. Okay, stop. But I forgot I wanted to mention that. Okay, next. You talk so much about retention. I'm curious if there's a myth that you see brands still believing in when it comes to customer retention. Thoughts on
I mean, I think the biggest thing that I see, like truthfully, is I see these roles for like head of retention or retention manager, right? And then like the responsibilities of that person is literally just email and SMS.
that? Yeah,
Like that's the true myth of it. It's like not thinking about retention as not putting like thinking of your retention as like a part of your entire customer's experience through
yeah,
their entire life cycle. And again, this goes back to what I was just saying, but like retention starts at the point of you first interacting with your customer.
yeah.
Truthfully. So even at the growth piece of it, right? Like if you even think about like your paid ad, what's the creative that you're putting out on that paid ad? What messaging and positioning are you putting out on that creative that aligns with the right expectations to give your customer? Then once you get them in the funnel, it's like every other touch point after that. So again, the myth is that retention is just email and SMS.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool to
that's
kind
what
of
it is.
start thinking about it really holistically. That's pretty high up, all the way at the initial touch.
Yeah.
the ad, the creative, that probably brings it a lot together. What do you feel like, when I talk to brands, sometimes the default is when it comes to customer retention or customer experience is, how do we, man, the price is where we go. If we drop price, that's something that'll help get more customers, it'll keep customers happier. Um, what do you feel like is more powerful than price when it comes to keeping customers around?
Building a good relationship. I mean, at the core of what customer experience is and retention, right? It's building a relationship with your customer.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and so like, and when you build a relationship, like you and I, we're homies, right? We have a relationship because like you spend time under
yeah,
personalizing a conversation with me. You spend time thinking about like what is my behavior and vice versa, right? So if you apply like that relationship building tactic to your brand and you apply it to both customer experience, both your retention process, your tactics, you're building that relationship with your customer. I don't think a discount strategy is the best way to retain a customer because all you're bringing in are honestly bad customers at that point. Like a
yeah,
relationship is a two-way street, just like it is with your friends, your partners, whatever it is, right? So you got
yeah.
to think about your customers in those same terms.
Yeah, man, the price thing is it's a beginning of the end. You bring in, I love your comment on bad customers, but it also is that race to the bottom often. If you're
Yeah.
going to do that, then the competitor does that. Personalization, something that's talked about in this space all the time. Not every brand has so much data that they can personalize. Just curious where you kind of guide people around. Hey, if you're trying to start the personalization journey, where do you do that? Assuming you don't have maybe everything figured out when it comes to the 360 view of the customer or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think with personalization, a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to use AI or, oh, I'm going to just say first name and like that's personalized, right? But like every brand that's out there, whether you're a L'Oreal or you're, a small, I don't know, dog walking business, right? You have a brand strategy that you put out into like that you put out there that you knew that the customers you were trying to bring in and the type of customer behavior that you're trying to speak to, right? So I think that like if you already have your brand strategy and you already know like the consumer you're trying to acquire or you're trying to continue having a relationship with, I would segment based off of like what your expected behavior of that customer is. And so what I mean by segmenting is in emails, for instance, email or SMS, right? You could create a segment of, maybe buyers who purchase this here, this is a good example. I have like a brand who is a skincare brand, and they sell collections based off of like the type of women skincare problems. So it's like crepey skin, fine lines, or
Yeah,
dehydration, right? You know that you're selling those three types of products. So segment based off of the
yeah,
click behaviors of those types of products, and then personalize those journeys based off of like those clicks. Like,
sure.
granted, that's not a lot of data. That like it's still a data
But
point,
it's something,
but
it's
you're
something you
already
start to build on.
acquiring that. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be an acquisition of data after they've made a purchase.
interesting.
Look at consumer behavior through your website, through your conversations in CX, and try to build segments based off of that.
Yeah, look, I think that's a great place to start. But it's one of those things you kind of have.
Mhm.
So rather than trying to, again, I think it becomes sometimes overwhelming. You got, oh man, I need to be so personalized, or I need to go get so much data. It's like, what do you have? How can you start building off something like that? I love the segmentation concept. Um, and again, jumping all over the place here, but you mentioned emails and SMS a little bit, and look, I think there's pros and cons there, but you see a lot of these when it comes to retention, and I'm curious, what are some of the bad things you see when on some of these emails that people are using potentially in post purchase, or is there a few tactical things you're seeing SMS email when people play with that?
Yeah, I mean, do you want the bad or do you want the my suggestion?
I want well, maybe do the bad and the good.
Okay,
Do the
I'm
bad
gonna
and
tell
the
you the
good.
bad because I actually have
Because
a good.
actually, the not doing the good would be bad. So let's do both.
Yeah, okay. I have a suggestion, and then like here's how I would play into
Fix
it.
it. Okay, yeah, good.
I'm
That's
not
probably
naming names. We're not naming no brands, okay? But there's a brand that I work with, and their welcome flow is like 50 emails deep.
Got it.
And there's some segmentation into it. There's some conditional formatting, this, that, and the other thing, right? But it's like not much. And they want to keep adding to their welcome flow rather than like, okay, yes, I've made a purchase, and then they're segmenting out people that have made a purchase and they're just giving them like one email. Whereas
Sure.
like the people who haven't purchased are getting like 40 different emails, right? So you should treat the customer who is brand new into your product line, and I'm not saying give them 40 different emails, but I am saying like your
Yeah.
buyer versus your non-buyer should have two different pathways, right?
Yeah.
And
Totally.
not only that, clean your list. Because like your customer like shouldn't be getting, if they have not made a purchase from you after 6 months, you should probably just give up at that point. Like you should probably, I wouldn't say
It's
give
so
up.
hard though. It's so hard to give those people up. But yeah, you're probably right. Just cut
Yeah,
the
but like maybe it's giving up in the welcome flow and
okay.
segmenting different and campaigning to them different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my suggestion, right? Like when you think about the post purchase, like I've made a purchase, I've done the things, but if I'm welcoming that customer into the brand, think about like, what do they need to know about this brand? Like, is it an education thing? How do I
Yeah.
get to
Cool.
upsell? Like, and those are a buyer versus a non-buyer are two different pathways. Don't feed them all the same garbage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Look, I think that's right. I mean, there's so much going on in that post purchase. I think that's one way you can kind of start to separate it. Couple more for you before I let you get back to Open Lake Collective here. A lot of people we talk to are talking about budgets and saying, budgets are a little bit tight, a little bit more strapped. There's always weird things going good and bad in the economy. Um, when you're thinking of being, just mindful of budget, where do you coach people to start on this kind of brand or CX journey? Is there a few things you're like, guys, I get it. It's things are tight, but to start this journey, here's where I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen brands do this. I don't know if this is like going to answer the question precisely, but I have seen brands do this where it's like, okay, I'm strapped for budget, but I'm going to put so much into my paid, right? I'm
Okay.
going to produce so much into my paid, and like, because obviously that's a growth lever. I need customers to do the things, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
then what happens is then they don't think about retention until it's too late. Then when
Yeah.
their list is 100,000 people and they're like, well, why is my consumer leaving? Right. So what, like, if nothing else, if you don't have a budget and you only have a growth team and you can't do much, and like your CX is being like outsourced to maybe one person, or you only have one person, my biggest thing that you should be doing is this. In CX, you should be tagging all of your conversations into like categories and subcategories, because and you can utilize that feedback when
Yeah.
you need to think about retention later, when you need to think about a better customer experience. But also if you start the feedback loop first, you're no longer operating off of gut feeling, you're operating
Yeah.
off of data
Yeah.
points for you. and
Yeah.
and that's a data point for product development, that's a
Sure.
data point for marketing, that's a data point for like, I don't know, I just have a big issue in my customer experience and I don't know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So my biggest thing is, you can have all the growth levers and you put all these things over here, but just spend a little bit of
Gotta
time.
spend a little time over there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me leave you with this one. So much going on in the space. You're obviously experiencing multiple conversations, multiple different brands, the good, the bad, the ugly. As you think about kind of things coming down the pipe, CX trends, the next 12 months, what are you interested in? What do you kind of track in? Is there a few things you're like, man, I think we got to be aware of this or that as we
Yeah.
kind of move forward?
I think the biggest thing, and like one of the things that I like just want to advocate for any CX leader, operator, or anybody thinking about their CX, like even listening to this, right, is that we need to start thinking about when we look at our CX department, if even if you don't have a head of retention and you're only doing the growth levers and you just have one CX person, whatever it is, don't just look at your metrics of like CSAT, first response time.
Yeah.
Try to find ways of how your CX department is driving repeat purchase and how they're affecting churn, or where you can find that feedback. Again, like it's going back to the last question.
Yeah.
But I think because with everything going on, you need to have a good use case and a good reasoning of why you need to keep investing in your customer service. And
Yeah.
so, and that's the first step in turning your customer service not into a cost center, but a revenue generator. And like even thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to see. I mean, as things get tough, you've got to find a way to have that cost center mentality, I think, leave and that profit center mentality come into play. I think that's a good one. Awesome. Jess, I appreciate the rapid fire. The great thing about Jess is you can always cover like 1,000 things in like 10 minutes. She just is like always running at 150 miles an hour. So Jess
Some
really
call it ADHD, my friend.
there's medication for that. No. I appreciate you jumping on, Jess. I think the audience will love that. So, guys, thanks for joining and enjoy the rest of your day.
Doodles.